So Donald Trump basically said, according to press reports, Iran may be planning an assassination or other attack against the United States in retaliation for the killing of terrorist leader Soleimani, which was carried out by his planning a future attack, murdering U.S. troops and the death and suffering caused over so many years. Any attack by Iran in any form against the United States will be met with an attack on Iran that will be 1,000 times greater in magnitude. So there he goes again, threatening to bomb Iran, which he used to criticize Obama's foreign policy. And here he is fomenting more war. We've already attacked Iran. We've already been on the brink of war. I just think this is like a really stupid move. Like, if I were advising him, I would say this is a really stupid move, because he could still be parading like he is less interventionist than Biden. But with actions like this, and then reminiscing on Soleimani, which we're going to touch on in a minute, I just think it really it's kind of wishy-washy. It's going to put some people off who voted for him because they thought he was going to be a non-interventionist candidate, and he hasn't been. Obviously, the base that thinks he can do no wrong is going to be like, yeah, America, fuck yeah, let's go, let's bomb these motherfuckers, etc. And I think that's why he's doing what he's doing.
Yeah, it's funny because he'll always pander to two countries no matter what, and that's Israel. So that's why he'll always talk about bombing Iran, whatnot, because he'll give Israel the red meat that they want, those conservative red meat Netanyahus over there.
Right.
And they're Netanyahus. And he'll also always pander to Saudi Arabia. So therefore, the vetoing of the Yemen, act to try to de-escalate that war, to try to strip Saudi Arabia of their military weapons to bomb and gas and kill so many Yemenis, with a serious genocidal problem. That's why he, swatted that aside. So no matter what, at the end of the day, he might act like he's anti-war, but not when it comes to his own allies, that the ones that he's so in the pocket with, Israel and Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
I read this and I was like, this is so like 9 months ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, why is it coming up now?
I checked the date. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
September he said that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, why all of a sudden is it coming out now? Is there something that's happening?
What press report is he referring to?
Yeah. Why Soleimani now? It was 9 months ago.
I thought the press was fake news.
Right. So,
according to the press reports he likes or he can manipulate.
Oh, I'm sorry, my mic was off. I was saying this is so 9 months ago.
yeah, it is entirely 9 months ago.
By the way, I just put this up here. Pompeo vows U.S. will never let Iran acquire Russian and Chinese weapons. So they're still kind of fermenting that whole, what I'm saying? For the party that was supposedly getting attacked by the Russians all the time, whatnot, and stuff. Right. When people say that Donald Trump is nice to Putin and stuff, he's been harder on Russia when it comes to sanctions and playing geopolitics with Pompeo, with NATO and all that stuff. So let's
he has
not be
been
fooled.
harder on Russia. Caitlin Johnston did a wonderful article outlining like every single thing that he has done against Russia. Because a lot of people were saying that, oh, he likes Russia, blah, blah, blah. Like, he doesn't. He's been pretty hard on them. So,
yeah.
There's just a lot that he's done.
So now we also have Syria.
Yeah, so regarding Syria, President Trump revealed today, that was yesterday, that he wanted to assassinate Syrian President Bashar al-Assad earlier in his presidency, reversing his previous denial that the issue never came up. And he said, quote, I would have rather taken him out. I had him all set up. Mattis didn't want to do it. And that was him referring to Bashar al-Assad.
Yeah.
What do you think that's about?
Well, I don't know. It's kind of like his mentality, this mafia whack you guy kind of like, you know what I'm saying? I don't know if he thinks that it's going to be less troops, which will keep him more politically safe from those libertarians that he thinks he can get over Biden. Therefore, I don't know. It was kind of that tactic. Like, remember, Obama was like, we pulled the troops out of Iraq, but here comes the drone warfare. Well, maybe he's trying to do a different type of method of just whacking leaders to keep them in line. I don't know, once again. But he was like, I do have a tweet in here, fam, that shows right below that, back in the days, Trump. Look what he says here, though. Sarah Abdullah. Many Syrian rebels are radical jihadists, not our friends, and supporting them doesn't serve our national interest. Stay out of Syria. That was in 2013. But now the presidency comes along. The military-industrial complex gets your claws into you. You know what I'm saying?
I think that that's what it comes down to. I think every president for a very long time that hasn't responded and hasn't agreed with the military-industrial complex ends up dead. So I think every single president most recently has been in the pocket of the military-industrial complex, and Trump is not, he's not an exception to that. He was trying to play it like he ran like he was going to take on and drain the swamp and blah, blah, blah. But his actions, his policies have shown otherwise. So again, if you were voting for Donald Trump because you thought he was going to be an anti-interventionist, just the argument's dead. He has been extremely interventionist, not as much as Obama was, but he's definitely been no angel when it comes to the military. He's definitely listening to the military. He definitely armed himself, surrounded himself with people like Pompeo, like some of the most
Bolton.
Lord Bolton. Yeah. Some of the most like pro-war imperialists.
And let me tell you something. The guy I was happy to settle on, I said, okay, it's not my dream Secretary of State or Secretary of Defense, was Flynn coming in. You know, Flynn was against what happened in Syria, what happened in Libya. You know, he kind of threw Obama under the bus when Obama was doing his victory lap when he got Osama bin Laden. You know, General Flynn was on Al Jazeera with Mehdi Hassan talking about no, the policy was wrong. I was against the policy. We should have stayed out of Syria, whatnot. Kind of threw Obama under the bus. Is he the best Secretary of State or Department of Defense? But right now, I'm just looking for any type of victory whatsoever. And the Democrats made sure they ruined that. And then all of a sudden, in comes the Boltons, in comes the Abrams, Elliot Abrams, is it Abramson or Abramson, I believe it is. Is it?
Abramson.
I know his little bald. He looks like, what's that guy? What's the boss in The Simpsons? Simpson, that guy. Or whatever his name is. No, he looks like the head boss, like the head evil guy. Anyways, but here's something I wanted to put up too, fam, as well, because we talk about this. And the question is Trump better than the Dems on foreign policy? Because he did say something the other day, and I was just like, wait, I had to sit there and I had to back off from him saying, I'm like, wait a second. Trump versus the military-industrial complex. And I just want to read what he said the other day right there. It's if you go up a little bit, in his powerful speech, which won the ire of the, I'm reading off yours, I should read here, of the top pentagram brass, Trump called and finally bringing American troops home and ending the endless wars, saying, I'm not saying the military is in love with me. The soldiers are. The top people in the Pentagon probably aren't, because they want nothing to do with but fight wars. So all those wonderful companies that make those bombs and make those planes and make everything else stay happy. But we're getting out of these endless wars. Let's bring our soldiers back home.
Yeah, I saw that. I just don't feel like it's genuine, though, because his actions haven't shown that. So even though it sounds good and it's like, okay, like he's going after, you know, the leaders in the military industrial complex, and he's saying, you know, the vets love him, etc., which some do, some people who are serving do. He hasn't really done much for veterans either. He's done a lot. He hasn't taken our troops home. He hasn't done any of the stuff that he's saying he's going to do. So again, I just think it's more pandering, and the neoliberals are really great at pandering, but so is the right. They're really good at platitudes, at saying the right things, but at the end of the day, you got to look at exactly what their actions are, and not just what they're saying.
Well, before I ask a question real quick, I just want to make sure that we show the proof about, and that's the Instagram. We had to use the Bull Moose note for this one right here, just so you can look. Trump didn't shrink the U.S. military commitments abroad. He expanded them, and if you hit each one, we'll go through every single article that he puts up. Trump dropped the record numbers of bomb on Afghanistan in 2019, doubling allegations of civilian casualties, while slashing the number of Pentagon investigations into such allegations by 50%.
Yep.
Same type of kind of actions with Julian Assange. He used Julian Assange to win in WikiLeaks, and then he turns around and he just, you know, cuts their legs off. Same thing over here. You know what I'm saying? That you're not getting a lot of investigations there. Trump administration is bypassing arms control pact to sell large armed drones. President Trump cancels rule requiring U.S. to report civilians killed in drone strikes. Despite vow to end endless war, here's about 200,000 troops remain. Where about 200,000 troops remain, you know what I'm saying? So he's just moving them around the Middle East and stuff. But my argument is this. Not my argument, my question is this, because we're going to get into a little bit further deeper and stuff like that. Is the rhetoric beneficial to some part of our movement for peace in the future? In other words, he's saying this stuff, and it really caught my attention, too, when me and Johnny were watching really briefly Status Quo. They were out there, they're doing some stuff, and you saw a Trumper arguing with a couple of people who were saying Trump was really not anti-war. He's done this, he's done that, he's done this, he's done that. The only thing is that they would pivot to, you got to vote for kind of Biden, which is the wrong kind of mentality. But seeing, and I last time we were out there at that Trump rally, I can't wait to get back out there to ask them their questions again to see how anti-war they are. You know what I'm saying? All for different reasons, which we can talk about and down the road and stuff. But isn't the rhetoric good for the future? It wasn't the rhetoric for Bernie Sanders saying Medicare for all is important. Green New Deal is important, even though we're not close to them policy-wise, and maybe AOC hasn't really thrown Nancy under the bus, and neither has Bernie. The whole message in the political discourse has changed to where we're focused at we need Medicare for all. Doesn't this get the right, some part of the right, those people who are fantasize about Trump, to eventually become somewhat anti-war?
I don't think so, because it's vapid. It's just like the Democrats giving the rhetoric of Medicare for all, then turning around and when they get in a position, ignoring it. I think it actually does more hurt, in my opinion, because you're putting it out there, but you're not really doing it. So the Democrats can come back. Look, he's putting this out there, but he's not really doing it. It's both hypocrisy on both sides. I mean, I think if you ask those Trump people if they're anti-war, I don't even think it's about them being anti-war as much as them being don't want that money being spent abroad, and they want to put America first. I think that's the Republican mentality for being an anti-interventionist, is you don't want the money to be spent elsewhere. It's rather than like how a lot of the leftists see it, is we don't want to kill people abroad. Also, yes, we're wasting a lot of money that we could use on resources here. Yeah. So I think that I don't think there's the same exact thing. I think
they're a mix of that, those Trumpers. They're a mix of both. Like, they're compassionate people, but they're compassionate about our troops. They're not compassionate as much about the lives.
Are they compassionate about our troops? Though, if they're sending
American
them to
troops,
war?
I think they are. But they're not compassionate about the bombs that are dropped on people over there. Whereas we're compassionate on the left of everybody, and then the libertarians are just fiscally like, you can't do this. We don't have the money, and it's going to come back and bite us in the ass. However, I still think, and I remember that guy who was in the wheelchair with the sound piece that they had Joe talk through this time, when he says, I believe in Medicare for all, and Joe's like, I don't. Like, it's just disgusting. But when he was talking to Bernie Sanders, he says, you changed our whole political discourse. Right now, when you look at the Seattle fans we have, Medicare for all is at the top of the list. It's a compassionate thing.
But that's coming from Bernie Sanders, not Donald Trump. It's two completely different ideologies.
Well, that's what I'm saying. But he didn't do what's necessary to even move the needle to get that done.
I mean, he tried, but he's like one guy. If Trump wanted to pass to be anti-war, he's more in a position of power to do it because he's the commander-in-chief.
Yeah.
So it's not.
Well, commander-in-chief's got much more power over foreign policy than they do over getting Medicare.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
And you're right about that. Yeah. So and stuff. But once again, what I'm saying is that all of Bernie's followers now realize the fact that Medicare for all is important. It's done all over the world, and even though it wasn't done policy, the political discourse has changed. I think you can see the same thing on the right, and that's all I'm trying to say. If Trump does this, he's one of the only people, because when Ron Placone, if he was on the show, he would always argue that Trump is the same type of Republican as the other Republicans. In policy, yes. In rhetoric, no. I think that rhetoric is important because it's going to change some people on the right to get out of that war mentality.
It's just going to make them more nationalists, though, not necessarily more anti-war.
Johnny, your thoughts?
So basically you're saying that because Bernie talked a lot about Medicare for all, it's in the front of everybody's minds.
Mm-hmm.
I would say Trump doesn't talk as much about getting out of wars as Bernie talked about Medicare for all.
Absolutely.
I'd say also that Trump has the power, like we said, as commander-in-chief, to be able to actually do something about it. And I'd also say, and I don't want to generalize, but a lot of his hardcore supporters don't give a shit about anything. They're just supporting Trump, and that's it. And I also want to go with the fact that most people don't watch politics, especially those in the parties. They don't look at policy. Democrats and Republicans, they don't look at policy. They're looking at character of a person or whatever, how they make them feel and shit. They're not looking at any policy.
They like that he's bold
so to
and
think
says
that,
things.
So to think that people are actually looking at policy, I mean, I'd say a majority of people, and especially the very vocal ones, are not looking at policy at all. And that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I'm trying to search for something positive here with the rhetoric. I mean,
we can talk about the negative rhetoric that he's been spewing since day one. I mean,
absolutely.
I mean, we're trying to find.
I'm talking about this one particular situation, stuff like that.
Seeds from a rotten apple or something.
Yeah. And this is the thing I wanted to talk about, because here's the article that's creating a lot of buzz, fam. And Glenn Greenwald, and this is something we need to talk about because we're at a crossroads here. You know what I'm saying? isn't the right wing populism just fascism? Was that now I think the thing that really kind of set off Greenwald is he felt like Sagar was definitely not fascist whatsoever, and I think this word fascism and what can be technically true, whether we get Vosh about it or not, is a way to kind of put a wedge in to say you can't talk to the right no matter what. They're fascist. Even this new populist right that might have like stuff that's which I think, and I'm going to tell you what I think as a populist right. Just because the policies don't come through.
You're a populist right?
No.
Oh, I thought you just said.
Of my opinions of what.
Oh, okay.
Because their argument isn't right wing populism just fascism. That was the argument, and they kind of went into this. And Glenn Greenwald really made this line with the author. He's saying, "Well, isn't it important that we go talk to these people?"
Who's the author?
On the right?
Can you?
You were talking about Nathan Robinson with the suit and the glasses,
Nathan
that
J.
dude
Robinson,
and whatnot. Yeah, Nathan J. Robinson.
Right.
And
so Nathan J. Robinson is pushing Joe Biden. Is pushing people to vote for Joe Biden.
Yes.
I think he's very weak on foreign policy. I think him and current affairs, it's a very Dem socialist type of ideology. But I tend to agree with Glenn Greenwald a lot, but I also feel, well, I'll wait till you do this and then I'll explain.
Okay. Does right-wing populism exist though? That is the question. We've been all asking that all the time.
What do you mean by right-wing populism? Can you define it first?
Well, this is my definition of right-wing populism. I believe it is rooted in libertarianism. It's a form of people on the right that have a lot of libertarian views. In other words, they believe in less intervention.
Right-wing. Yeah. It's ruled in right-wing libertarianism because there's also left-wing libertarianism.
Yeah, I mean, all the libertarians are now like on the right, though, in America. In America,
yeah.
In America. Yeah. So, I mean, the Libertarian Party did come out of the progressive movement, and a lot of people don't realize that and stuff. But I believe it's libertarians are obviously fiscally against intervention. Progressives are compassionately against it. And this is where that right wing populism, they're nationalistically.
Yeah, they're nationalists.
They're nationalists. You know, they are anti-elitist, which is another thing. Like the whole
are they though?
They are. Their whole thing is that Hollywood and all these elites,
but
they get the wool pulled over their eyes. This is when they say that
they don't want to tax them more.
That's the whole thing. They don't want
generalizations also.
Yeah. Well, they don't. They want like a flat tax. They don't believe in tax loopholes and all that stuff.
So how can they be?
But that's the whole thing. Well, they're anti-elitist, and the point that they think that the people running things up top, like the Democratic Party, Hollywood, and whatnot, that are against them. Now with the tax cuts, that's the whole problem. Donald Trump sold it as I'm sorry. Donald Trump sold it as I'm lowering your taxes, but at the same time, he gave the elites freaking tax breaks that the people on the bottom didn't pay attention to. So that's when you can say the wolves pulled over their eyes. They're against the security state. You know what I'm saying? Big time. A lot of those people that we see in the streets, whatnot, they don't like, Big Brother peeking over their eyes and looking into their stuff. They believe in fake news that's controlled by the security state, whether they're right or wrong and stuff. They are hardcore nationalists. The right-wing populists, they are hardcore nationalists.
So they're very anti-immigrant.
They believe in protecting our borders, is what they say, where we look at it as like, hey, man, this is, and once again, you can say you're being racist and lacking compassion for these people that are just trying and find a better life. But also the fact that we have to also point in the fact that they're coming to find a better life because of our actions. And I always make that a point to point that out, because they say they believe in individual responsibility. Well, why aren't you taking responsibility for our foreign policy and driving all these people, especially from the North Triangle, into our country? Because you've removed their leaders and torn them apart. So that's what I believe right-wing populism is. Those kind of things. It's different than the actual just neoconservative, the Liz Cheneys. That's what I believe right-wing populism is.
I think it's really dangerous to consider everybody on the right a monolith. I don't think they're a monolith. I mean, I think a lot of people who are on the right, if we're looking at a three-dimensional graph, you have the authoritarianism, then you have the libertarianism, then you have the leftism, and then the right wing. So Hitler was a right wing nationalist, so he's over here at the authoritarian right wing side. But then you have people like Gandhi who were a little bit more authoritarian, but they were on the left. a little bit more. Then you have people like Bernie Sanders, who falls on the center paradigm in the world scale. Then you have people like Marx, who is actually here. He's not as libertarian as people would think he is. And then you have the anarcho-communists, which is kind of where I tend to fall, all the way in the corner, where you want people to have individual civil liberties, but at the same time, you also have a very leftist point of view on things. So again, it's really hard to define anything because you can't. America has a two-party system, which is basically a one-party system. We don't even understand how to begin defining different fractions within different parties. So I agree with you that it's not the exact same thing as a typical old school Republican. Just like, what's the guy you like on RT?
Peter Lavelle.
Peter Lavelle. He's a conservative, but he's in
reality. He believes in.
In reality, he's more of a centrist on the world scale. I think he because the things he believes in, fall in line there. See, I'm all the way at the corner down there, and Stalin was all the way on the left, but more authoritarian in his actions. I'm not an authoritarian type of leftist. I don't believe in telling people that they have to do this. Although Pasta would argue I'm authoritarian in the household, but that's his personal point of view.
By far. And a lot of people believe that the socialism is a form of authoritarianism.
A lot of people believe in communist China, and that's socialism, or the style Stalin communist Russia is all there is when it comes to communism, and that's not the case either.
That's miseducation.
It's miseducation, but we do it the same thing with the right.
Yep.
We do it the same thing with the right. We say, oh, they're all the same. Now there are things that the right agree with. They're usually pro security in the sense of immigration. They're usually, very fiscally, they don't want to spend money on programs, etc. There are some things that connect people on the right. But I think there is something to this right-wing populism. I still think it's right-wing, though. I still don't agree with it. Because I think, for me, it's
there. How do we reach out? Should we reach out? I mean, remember
What do you mean by reach out? Talk to people?
Yeah. Try to come to, I mean, for me, my personal feelings about when Bernie Sanders lost and bowed out and Donald Trump won.
Right.
There
2016.
What's that?
In 2016?
In 2016. Was that I want Bernie Sanders to keep himself separated from the Democratic establishment and go and say, I'm representing the left now, the real left, not this establishment, latte liberal bullshit left. And I want an infrastructure bill to put a bunch of people back to work, and I want a green infrastructure deal. I thought we would have been better suited off. However, people said no, he shouldn't have done that. He's doing what he should have done, which is calling out the racist, the xenophobicness.
Well, he got attacked. If you remember, after 2016, they attacked him, saying he was blind on racial issues. If you remember, a lot of people in the neoliberal black community started attacking him. So when he ran his campaign in 2020, they completely went to the whole, a lot of the identity politics, a lot of everything. I mean, I'm glad he addressed the issue of reparations. Nobody said he couldn't address that issue, and also address the white working class issues that he addressed in 2016. I think it hurt Bernie.
Yeah, well, the whole thing is that the fact is that I feel he was pressured to go that way rather than going because at the end of the day, if he went to Donald Trump and he got an infrastructure bill where a bunch of poor people can get back to work, he's actually doing more for.
But do you think Donald Trump would have listened to Commie Bernie, the way he talks about Bernie and the left? He's calling right now Biden and Harris a bunch of communists, and I see a lot of his supporters on my Instagram, people I went to high school with, look at these commies, Kamala Harris and Biden, look at these thugs. It's just
But here's the thing. I would have liked to see him try. I thought it would have been better off and stuff. And the fact is that you align yourself with that Democratic Party. You put yourself out there to be called, not communist and whatnot, but the other attacks that are coming on him. The reasons why we on the show, we don't got that old school Bernie when it was 2008, when it was just burn, go burn it down, let's go. That was the Bernie we love. Now, he's supporting a guy who's done, frankly, worse things policy-wise than Donald Trump and Joe Biden. And, I'm saying, it's completely disarmed him from many of those independent thinking people that would have stayed with him and said, you know what, F the Democratic Party, we're with Bernie. They would have stayed with Bernie. A lot of people like myself walked away from Bernie because he did choose to go with that Democratic Party, rather do what Bernie was supposed to do, and that's be old school Bernie, the guy who got us from that first, when Matt Orfalia played that one. What are you worried about? People just think there's one aisle. You know what I'm saying? He was the true populist movement on the left. People would have followed him. And if he would have got a lot of people back to work repairing this country, you know, building roads and stuff, and got at least Donald Trump to say, okay, because Donald Trump won't ignore a bunch of people on one person's side right now. The fact that he's Donald Trump the way he is right now is the Democrats are shrinking their base. They're shrinking it, they're shrinking it, and they're shrinking it.
Basically,
they're moving people away because of the Joe Biden selection.
Basically, Pastor, what you're saying is that you would have liked to see more leadership from Bernie. What that leadership consists of is it can be anything, right? It could be maybe a different tactic than what you're suggesting than talking to Trump, right?
He says, you know, Donald Trump is the most racist, the most sexist president of all times, whatnot, and that to me equates to whether you're right or wrong. That means you're not going to do business with him. And whether we like it or not, that's the person in charge. We got to go do business with them. And I think a lot of people have that. When I say, well, I wish that Bernie Sanders would have went and done business with Donald Trump, they say to me, well, how could you say that? How could you say go do business with a racist, sexist, xenophobic piece of shit?
Well,
like
I mean, that argument also stands, though, too, like, because Trump has, like, fomented a lot of that language. And we talked about it yesterday. You know, that anti-protester rhetoric, that violent looters rhetoric, like all these things. He has been fomenting that from the start. That was his little, you know, click. That was what he was doing. So I can see why some people don't want to talk to him. However, like, I think as a person in political leadership, you should talk to people you disagree with. Maybe we have to because we're journalists, but like people who aren't journalists, maybe they don't have to. They shouldn't have to be if they are uncomfortable, because I get it. Like, you're not a person in this position of power. But I think people who have that leadership should talk to people on the other side, even if they disagree with them. Yeah. Because if anything, you talking to those people and disagreeing with them and exposing that disagreements strengthens your argument, because then everybody sees. This is why I'm against censorship, and this is why I'm more libertarian than pasta. But on the left is because I don't believe in censorship. I was having this discussion with my friend Tina the other day. You know, she thinks, well, too many people have the power to say whatever they want, and they shouldn't have a platform because they're lying. And I'm like, yeah, they're lying. It's really shitty that they're lying. But we actually hit this same question yesterday. Like, yes, we should have a commitment to veracity, but at the same time, that is less dangerous than the effects of censoring people, in my opinion, because the moment you censor somebody, people don't see what those people are saying and how wrong they are, because they're not going to have me arguing against a right-wing nationalist and telling you this, and that. They're going to hear they're going to find a way to get to that information, and they're going to be angry that they weren't allowed to see for themselves. Yeah. There should be nobody like censoring anybody. And I think that relates to this as well, because I think if we don't talk to other people we disagree with, I think that's a problem. Yeah. However, I on the current affairs thing, with this guy Nathaniel and Glenn, I do think sometimes Glenn does not as like he's I've seen him kind of not dismiss entirely the racial issues, but just like not focus on it enough. I think that was the only weakness that I think I saw in that argument. But I don't think it's fair to call right-wing populism exactly the same thing as fascism. I don't know. I mean, to me, when you censor people, it's fascist. When you go and you are arresting journalists, that's fascist. I think that's wrong. So it depends. Like, it's really hard to say, though, that it's exactly fascism, unless you're specifically referring to specific incidences like of outright authoritarianism. I think the Democrats are just as Biden is just as fascist as a Donald Trump. That's it's the same thing. So how are you defending voting for Joe Biden? Yeah. Okay, like, and then by the same token saying that Sagar is a fascist. Like, I don't think Sagar is a fascist. Yeah. I disagree with him a lot, but I don't think he's a fascist.
And Glenn Greenwald even mentioned in it, that episode, like, even talking about, like, and when it comes to Tucker Carlson, I don't like everything he does. His love affair with the police department, to me, is sometimes disturbing. Yeah, it's disturbing. I disagree with it and stuff. But once again, what other guy is going to put people on there and have Anya Parampel come on her show, or Jimmy Dore and whatnot, and talk about regime change?
He had Marianne Williamson on.
It's like, I mean, he still does that too as well.
CNN will make fun of Marianne Williamson. CNN made fun of Tulsi Gabbard. Yeah. They gave her a platform. So it's kind of like, I trust me, I am disgusted by Tucker Carlson, a lot of things he says on immigration, on race, on all these things. And I think personally, Tucker Carlson is a very alt-right type of guy. But the fact that he even allows people to come on a show who completely are on, like Anya Parampel, who are on the complete like opposite end of it,
and agree with her,
it's like, because she focuses on policy rather than saying, "Oh, you're a right-wing nationalist piece of shit. I hate you." So,
well, that's the why I wanted to get to that too. I mean, people went out there the other day when we went to that Trump rally following. They knew who we are. They look at the Convo Couch. They were looking at us suspiciously from when the get-go. It's very easy to see, where we go, what we do. We are definitely more a leftist channel. I mean, we follow the Democrat Party.
But we're independent media, so we're not funded by...
Yeah, we're not funded by anybody, so that's why we went out there. But they were watching us. And, I was trying to make sure that I was trying to put some form of pushback there without getting my head smacked open. But it is, and I'm going to peel the onion a little bit more each time that I build confidence with them and ask them even more tougher questions and stuff. But the whole thing I was trying to get out to was that question, is that trying to connect with the other side. And that's what I think this is. When you have language like this and you say, isn't the right wing just populism? Isn't the right wing populism just a form of fascism? You're saying, don't speak to that person. That person's inherently racist. You cannot deal with them. You can't talk to them. You can't
even
get
if you're
done.
Right. But like, talk to them, because it's even the thing that Niko went to where they were like, oh, not a lot of lefty people like talking to the other side. It's like that. I mean, that's stupid, because if you have the opportunity to show them how wrong they are, and he did, he was able to convince a lot of people on the right on reparations just by talking to them about policy, because he knows what the hell he's talking about, instead of people like Vosh who get on and they're like, well, you didn't say the exact same definition that I have in my little book, so fascism. That's it. You can't define fascism. That's stupid. But like, it's why you have to argue with people like Vosh and other people on the right or whatever, because it shows how dumb they and how wrong they are. I think not arguing and censoring it and saying we're not going to talk to those people does more damage in the long run than talk. That it's just so stupid to me that the left, not the liberal left, has somehow become very, very okay with censorship just because you don't agree with somebody, like censoring them. There's a difference between, though, and maybe you'll disagree with this. I think like when it comes to racism, I understand why people don't tolerate like seeing the N-word or seeing all these things like on our show, like in our moderation when on the chats, if somebody's calling, like denouncing somebody by their race and stuff, that is an automated no-go. But that's like our channel, right? I still think people like Alex Jones should have the opportunity to say the bullshit they say, because the moment we censor them, it's going to be used against people like us. Yeah. So
I would watch a Fiorella and Vosh debate. So would I. I'd sell tickets for it.
I want to say that on this last note, is that there's a lot of lack of leadership out here, and I also believe, again, empire education makes it so that more people are followers and not as many people step up to be leaders. And I would have liked to see Bernie try that situation, Pasta. So because Trump, if Trump says no, then you get to say that Trump said no.
I tried.
And if he said yes, then say,
he might have been forced to say yes if
it's a win-win.
If Bernie separated himself from the Democratic Party and had that populist movement, and he was going to be, that means if you separate yourself from that Democratic Party, now you got all these independents out there. Now you're back to old school Bernie, which is what? Workers first. Let's go. I'm going to put money into people's pockets, and we're going to freaking fix this thing. And you're actually helping more people of color who are poor. You know what I'm saying? Getting the Belt and Road Initiative for the Chinese is going to put a lot of people out of poverty. The same thing could have been done over here.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? And man, fam, the reason why these things are so tough to talk about, because where we're at, you know what I'm saying? Because
people get emotional because obviously race is something that's really hard to. I mean, like with a lot of these people, though, and what we were talking before the show, there's not going to be a compromise on racism. Like either you're going to join and like also help fight that, or you're not. So there's not going to be a compromise on that. But people in media and people who are politicians, they have to be the ones to do it, because you are representing the voices of the people. whether you're a politician or whether you're a journalist or whatever. You're representing the voices of the people. So it is on you, essentially. And if you're trying to build a coalition and you're an activist, then it's also on you, because you're trying to represent the voices of the people, and not talking to people who disagree with you. I think it ends up hurting your cause, because then that's it. You put them where are you going to put them? I mean, I think there's a point though where people aren't going to change their mind, like let's say on racism, and they are going to be racist, and then what are we going to do with them? That's something that this country is like on the brink of civil war, because it is an issue that you can't just like be like, well, you know, I'll tolerate this racist as long as we pass. I don't think a lot of people of color are going to be able to be like, well, I'll tolerate this racism as long as we can, you know, stop wars. I don't know if everybody's going to be able to do that. We
have to find the way, and I think Johnny said it best before. It's got to be an and we have to find that and. You know what I'm saying? Like I talk about that whole opioid epidemic that's just killing, you know, so many people, and a lot of white people too as well, and they're just death every day. The military-industrial complex, these soldiers coming home, shooting themselves in the brain, 20 of them every day, 22 every day, 20 of them white males, you know what I'm saying? So there is just death and everything surrounded with us. We have to find a way to tie it all together, you know what I'm saying? And if we can do that, then we can get in the streets together and everybody can move forward and stuff. I mean, because people aren't going to be as understanding as like a person like me, you know, like I talk about it all the time. Like, we have a racist criminal justice system, and even though I'm big time on the class, believing that the ultimate solution is if we fix the class issue, it will naturally help the racist issue. I'm not saying it's going to solve it, but I think it's the best thing for it, because I believe people starved of resources will fight each other. But you know what I'm saying, it's just finding that way where we say, okay, everybody, there's death surrounded by all of us. How do we all come together? How do we all fight against the people pulling the strings? And through that mission, through that quest, I think a lot of poor people, white people who are poor, will see the plight of what it goes through when you're black. You know what I'm saying? How different it is, and then they'll understand that. But until we get them together in the streets and everybody together, groups together, it's going to be really tough. You know what I'm saying? And I always said it has to be a person of color, whether it be a male or a female, that's got to come forth. It's got to be someone from, I believe, from labor. Because no matter what, our system traps that we're all workers. We all got to put food on the table. You only get that through work, unfortunately, and stuff. So I'm waiting to see that leadership come forth and whatnot. Not to dismiss the other thing, fam, because we can't dismiss it. And I think we just got to find that right balance. And this tactic right here, to me, is pushing people away by saying right-wing populists are nothing more than fascists.
Well, it's just incorrect for me. It is pushing people away, but I think it's just really it's a sensationalist title. That's the word I was looking for. It's very sensationalist, and it's geared towards fear mongering more people, and dividing more people. I think it fear mongers a lot of the left to say no, I have to vote for Biden because
that's what they're trying to do.
He believes that Joe Biden is not a fascist. He believes that Joe Biden is the better alternative. And I'm telling you, Joe Biden is a fucking crypto fascist. So people like Nathaniel piss me off because, is it Nathaniel or Nathan? Okay, sorry. People like Nathan piss me off because they try to pretend that Joe Biden isn't, exactly, like Joe Biden is better than Donald Trump just because his rhetoric is less incendiary. And it's, like, let's look at his record, bro. Let's pull up his record.
Yeah, I know. You talk about, you know, people fermenting that hate and that racism. I mean, Donald Trump.
It's like, Donald Trump is horrible. I'm not saying he's not.
But on policy, just because Joe Biden's friendly, he's a straight up segregationist that said he wanted his family getting raised in.
And George Bush is endorsing him. George Bush was a far worse president than Donald Trump has been on policy. And he's endorsing Joe Biden. What's the other guy, the right-winger who I think out of a joke endorsed Joe Biden too? This right-wing
not Schneider. You're talking about.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. Like, it's insane to me.
That
happened. But it's like,
and they bragged about it.
It's just hilarious to me.
They bragged about it.
I'm saying he did it because maybe.
By the way, Gloria
was Richard Spencer.
Yes, yeah, Richard Spencer. That's who it is. So Gloria was telling me that TYT was talking about how horrible Trump is. So that's why I said Trump is horrible, just so we can get that in there, because he is. I think he is, but I'm not going to spend an hour and a half telling you what you already know. Yeah. More people need to know how horrible the Democratic Party is, so they stop following into the lesser of evilism.
Both parties.
Exactly. Because
would you hate me if I said if I had a gun to my head and I had to vote for Joe Biden or Donald Trump, I would vote for Donald Trump?
But you don't have a gun to your head.
Exactly. Because right now it's Gloria La Riva, baby. But I'm saying, Is that a bad thing to say, Johnny? Is that really?
I think people are going to judge you on that no matter what you say.
I don't think you need to say it.
Okay. I hear you. I don't want people to fall for the bait right now for voting for Joe Biden. I think that we have to go Hunter S. Thompson, and that's really blow up the Democratic Party like they should be blowed up, so we can get a real opposition party to the right wing.
I think what would be better to say is that, what I would say is that I fear Kamala Harris coming into presidency, which is really freaking scary.
It's Kamala Harris manipulated by Clinton.
Biden's gonna croak soon.